It's time that you knew there's someone there who's searching for you, and it's time that you believe he's gonna find you.
Well, hello everyone. Thanks so much for joining us once again for another Two Guys Fixing the World episode. And who are those guys? Well, one of them is me, Mark Stallard, and of course my very good friend Ryan Jans is joining us as well as usual. Hey Ryan, how's it going?
Howdy, Mark. Oh, I'm doing quite well, thanks. Hi to everybody out there, wherever you are and whatever you're doing at whatever time. We're glad that you can make us part of your day.
Indeed. So this is actually going to be part 2 of an ongoing series. We're going to be talking about, well, starting off at minimum wage, and it's going to actually probably morph a little bit as we go, but that's kind of where it starts. People, salaries, wages, and that kind of thing.
Indeed, yeah. We'll talk about that. We're going to try and balance it out about the how much of a political issue is it and how that gets designated between possibly different tiers of government. If you didn't catch our last episode, it was also on minimum wage, obviously, because we are in a series. But we kind of just laid some groundwork for what minimum wage is, some different points of view of how minimum wage could be potentially calculated, and whether it's based on relevant skills or skilled or non-skilled, living conditions. There's a whole bunch of that. Check us out. Fixingtheworld.ca or on your favorite podcasting application. Please like, share, subscribe, tell all your friends, and keep listening.
Get the word out there. This is a great show, even if we say so ourselves, and we do.
Yeah, I don't think there's a show that we've done where we haven't at least put our foot in our mouth just a little bit. So if it sounds muffled,
of course,
I'm probably eating my shoe.
Yes, indeed. Yes. So, so I think the last show we kind of, I think we painted a pretty broad brush on the minimum wage, why it was necessary. We kind of had a little bit of a definition, which was the price consumer index. I probably said that wrong, haven't I? So the idea is that someone should be paid to the point where they are now living outside of the poverty line or above the poverty line, which is really quite a low bar, I think. But that's one, and I think that pretty much everyone that's serious tends to use those kinds of measures on minimum wage. But regardless of what the minimum wage should be, and we'll probably talk about that in upcoming episodes, and not necessarily a fixed number, but it's how it could or should be calculated. We're actually going to just take a little bit of a very step by step over the next 20 minutes or so, looking at some of the arguments against and the arguments for, breaking them down. We won't be going to all of them. Otherwise we'll be here for a couple of hours, I'm sure.
For sure. There are just a few. I've kind of broken it down into a few that I've highlighted out here on the list.
Go for it.
That list you guys can find at, I'm going to throw it out here at https://minimum-wage.procon.org. That link will be in the description or on fixingtheworld.ca. So that's minimum-wage.procon.org. And so there's a list here of pros and cons, or arguments for or arguments against minimum wage. You're going to fastly find out that on the against, I have way more issues with. However, there are a few on the pro side that made me, the cynic and questioner that I am, and cunning centrist that I am, raise my eyebrows. And I would question them as to whether or not that is there, but we'll get to those ones as it are. So should we go against or for, or how do you want to kick this off, Mark? What would you?
Well, I don't know. Why don't we go take it against, and then we'll maybe look at the opposing position in the for. That might that might be an interesting way to do it.
For sure.
Otherwise, I think if we do one or the other, if we do all of the for and or all of the against, it's going to get a little bit oppressive. So
yeah. Okay. So I'll let you go ahead and pick it. There's only a few on the against that I absolutely want to cover.
Sure.
I have lots that I have issues with, but
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I'm going to start at the
but
top of the list
let's
because
go ahead. Yeah.
this is always one that's it's always makes me laugh. Actually, is increasing the minimum wage would force businesses to lay off employees and raise unemployment levels.
I couldn't even make it through it without laughing.
It's kind of ludicrous. Yeah, I mean for sure. There are a couple of places in Winnipeg. One I wish I could remember the name of it, but never can. But I don't know if I should be saying the name of the place anyway.
Let's not.
Yeah, but
we do post stuff publicly, so we are a little crazy, but we're not suicidal.
Yeah. So the idea was a small coffee shop had a couple of employees, and he was kind of beside himself on social media, particularly Facebook, saying just how much this is going to hurt his business, and I believe it probably would. It's a small place, but they're still in business. I mean, the minimum wage did go up a little bit. It didn't go up to 15, but it did go up. We think we went up about $1. I think.
I think we're 11. Hang on,
11.65 now.
Your point, Bill. What is it? Sorry, say again.
We're at 11.65 in Manitoba at the moment.
There we go. I knew we were over 11, but I just couldn't remember if we were 65, 75, 80.
There was like a 30 or
I knew we were in that range.
It was like a 30 or 40 cent raise this year because I had to.
Yeah.
Well,
the question. I know pennies add up, but I mean, pennies really add up when you have talking about quantities of 1 million. But when you're talking about giving someone a 30-cent raise, a 30-cent raise is if a 30-cent raise is putting you out of business, I don't think you're running your business properly. Yeah,
and I tend to agree. No, I mean the fact of the matter is that we've had minimum wage, well, as we mentioned last year. Last week on the show, was been a thing since the 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
In some places, in the early 1900s for most other places, and of course Americans in mid 1900s because, well, they're a little bit behind everybody. And businesses have not gone out of business yet. That we've had right in the middle of the 1970s, there were relatively low levels of unemployment, followed by lots of unemployment, but it had almost nothing to do with the amount people were being paid.
And that had a lot more broader economic consequences.
Yeah, and so the idea that businesses are going to stop making money because they have to pay people a little bit more is, I think, absolutely it's laughable. It's hold your sides laughing.
I don't think you.
Oh, I've got to pay you an extra. I've got to pay you. I'll pay you another $4 an hour, and I'm in a profitable business. I'm not throwing my business away. Only an incompetent or a boob would do that.
Yeah. That seems. You're right. It is laughable, and I'm sure if anybody's listening, I don't think you made it through that point without me getting a chuckle because it's just absolutely absurd.
Yeah.
It is probably the most absurd of all these lists. Some of them you can actually see some points. Even if you don't agree with them, you can only see a point. That one that's really stretching it.
Yeah.
That's really stretching it.
And of course, then the counter on the arguments for, even though we've been arguing that, raising the minimum wage would increase economic activity and spur job growth. I don't know if that's really true or not, but it's the people on the bottom that are spending everything they make.
Right.
So there definitely would be more money in the economy because there'll be more people spending it.
Right. So that's the opposing. That would be your answer. That's the increasing minimum wage would have a ripple effect. That's actually one of the ones that I sort of raised my eyebrows to, because anytime somebody says there's a ripple effect or trickle down effect or this is a certain type of economics named after a stupid president, I really raise my eyebrows and say, will it? Because if you increase, there is a thing to be said that businesses exist to make money, and so the money, their profit has to come out of somewhere, and it's going to come out of the consumer. So if they have to increase, and I'm not saying I agree with this. I'm just following this through. I'm trying to put myself into the fat cat, pair of rich Italian leather shoes. If you're trying to run a business and and you see that you have to increase this, aren't you just going to increase that and pass that on to your consumer? So the ripple effect kind of works both ways. So have you really increased? If they've increased the margin so that they can make more profit, just so they can cover up the expenditure of paying the added wages, is that still, have you even, you're still behind the eight ball, you're still not at a wage, right?
Yeah. I mean,
So I question whether or not that's that's for, like, that's actually a pro, right? That's
Yeah.
the cynic in me. That's the
Yeah.
guy who's worked for big business, small business, and every kind of business in between.
Right. I mean, and this is a point that I'm sure I'm absolutely going to be bringing up in later shows as well. Is that we demonize the little guy because they want more money, and therefore that's going to raise prices for everything. I mean, that's one of the arguments. But no one ever says, well, hang on a minute, the profit that these businesses put on their products and on their services provides no value whatsoever. It's just an additional cost that raises the price of something. And no one says, hang on a minute, I'm not getting any value for that. No one ever says that.
That's right.
But yet you are getting, but when you're paying someone to live, there's value in that. You've got some they're working, they're putting in their time and their effort. There's value there, but there is no value in profit whatsoever. But no one ever says that.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that's a great counter argument to my. And it's not that I was arguing or anything. No. It was just more of a question, because I know that, you know, anytime. Well, actually, it really. I'm gonna devolve here. There's a show that I used to really love called Boston Legal, right? It had William Shatner and James Spader playing these two attorneys that were just crazy and wacko, and it was rather entertaining. But they brought up some really interesting legal / political issues, and one of them was that there was a drug company that had a class action. They were defending a drug company that had done some questionable billings, and he looked over at the guy and says, he's going for a mistrial. That's all the context you need. You can go see it. Check out Boston Legal on whatever streaming service that has it. It's a great show. You'll at least get a good laugh out of this first season. But what he goes is, he turns to the jury and he very flippantly says, I'll tell you what, slap my client with $1 million verdict. The plaintiff will think he's won. We'll pass on the cost to the consumer, and we won't be out a dime. That is really corporate America, corporate thought in the process, right? Whatever, you're gonna sue me, fine, sue me. Get your $1 million, and I'm just gonna pass it on to the consumer, right?
Yep.
I'm gonna find a way to do it. I'll cut people's wages so that I can still sell, but I just get a higher margin. The whole point is they exist for profit, not just to make money. It's about profit, right? So it's about making that 30% on top of what it costs them. So if you now owe them or cost them 30 cents more on the dollar on the balance sheet, now they have to actually increase or decrease something else to make that 30% or that magic arbitrary number or that sales target. So
and that's where you get that
that's
magic
why
word.
I was questioning.
And that's where you get that magic word cuts. Yeah, they've got to, and we hear that in government all the time. You got to cut, and it really, what that really means is we're going to remove something that adds value to what you're buying, and we're going to cut that out, but still either charge you the same amount or charge you more. I mean, look at the wagon wheel. I mean, they used to be the size of wagon wheels, and now they're the size of chocolate buttons, right? But how much more? How much more are they now? Yeah, like cost wise,
right. They're the same bloody price adjusted for inflation, right? So,
maybe, yeah, we can do that. But the idea is, we'll take a gram off here and there, maybe take 5 grams off there, and we'll pretend it's the same. And the wagon wheel company refused to admit that they've got smaller.
Even though you could
refuse to admit. Yeah. So.
Agreed, 100%. I think one of the other things that we should touch on is minimum wage. A minimum wage increase would hurt business and force companies to close. And I say that force. I actually put force in quotation marks in my notes, because one of the things that it's kind of apt that we're going into this. What we talked about dovetails nicely into this. the idea that a company would close because they have to increase means that they didn't think that they were profitable in the first place.
Yep.
So they just look at it and said, we're going to put too much effort in to get our profit out, so we're just going to close it. So if a union comes in, we're going to close it because now we're not going to be profitable according to, even though that's a load of garbage. A good union isn't going to try and strong arm in areas that it shouldn't strong arm, right? That just makes sense. But if they're going to close the doors because a union comes in, if they're going to close the doors because 30 cents an hour came in, well, in over 100 people, it's, you're not selling that many more widgets to cover your increase. So
I mean, look at something as big as Walmart or McDonald's. I mean, it's. I mean, think about how much profit a single employee takes part in creating for the owners. They're making less than $12 an hour, but you can be guaranteed that what the service that they're selling or the products that they're selling are making the business 3, 4, 5, maybe 100 times more per hour than that. The idea that particularly the medium to big companies are going to go out of business or suffer in any way is, again, it's just laughable. Yes, there might be less profits, but yeah, they'll find a way to get that back up, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, they have entire departments: sales, marketing, legal departments, lobbyists who are lobbying. Amazon consistently sells at a loss, but still is one of the more profitable and doesn't have to pay taxes. Like that tax revenue alone saving you that much. Pay your workers more. Like, come on, man. Like this isn't this isn't really why is it so clear, right? Unclear.
So actually, I'm kind of sticking to the top of this list here, but there's one that's absolutely laughable. Raising minimum wage would increase poverty. So people that don't have money, giving them money, which is the definition of poverty, is not having money or not having enough money, giving them money would not make them less poor. I mean, come on. Do we need to even discuss this one? It's absolutely laughable in its face.
It's pretty absurd when you think about it.
Yeah, will it make people rich an extra 50 cents or even an extra $2 or $3 an hour? Well, no, absolutely won't. But yeah, you're definitely going to reduce the level of a family's poverty by giving them more money. Of course you will, but you're not just giving them the money. This is it's not a freebie. They're earning it, and most people making a minimum wage. You've got everybody in the family working, and some of them are working multiple jobs just to make ends meet. So these aren't
right.
So these aren't lazy people, right?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So, and one of the other things too that kind of stood out to me was raising minimum wage would decrease high school enrollments and increase dropouts.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you talking about? You think that by saying to somebody, hey, if you don't get we're gonna offer higher wage there. Guess what? If someone doesn't complete high school, they have pigeonholed themselves to basically an entire career of minimum wage, most likely part-time, multiple jobs. Like, that's so very clear. There's lots of people who drop out for all kinds of reasons, and nobody drops out because they said, hey, I've got a job over here for $11.65 an hour, whatever our current rate is. Nobody says that. If somebody said, hey, I'm dropping out because I got a $20 an hour job, yes, you could make that a point, but nobody's offering 20 at a minimum wage. And to get $20 an hour without a high school education as a bare minimum would be, who do you know? Like that's you're working for your dad, you're working for the family business, because nobody else is going to pay you that.
And the irony of this, because we're looking at this article in the minimum wage procon.org as our kind of guide to this discussion. But the counter argument is raising minimum wage would increase school attendance and decrease high school dropout rates. So it's exactly the opposite. They're both saying. So I'm not really
But-
sure the point of either really is.
Yeah. Would it decrease high school dropout rates? I don't know. People drop out of high school for all kinds of
Yeah.
reasons. There could be mental health issues. There could be drug addiction issues. There could be,
Yeah.
the
Well, some
foolishness of youth.
Some people will drop
There's-
out of high school to possibly to take a low-paying job because the family just can't afford to keep them in school.
Exactly. Yeah.
So they're
That point, number or letter M on our list that it would increase high school attendance. Not necessarily. I don't think that's a weak point.
Yeah.
It's pretty weak.
I think so. Yeah.
So
It is, but yeah, it's funny that both sides are saying the exact opposites. It's not just. It's not just.
sometimes
So it's not
they
really.
really do.
It's not really
in
point.
fact-
It's not point counterpoint. It's point. Oh no, it isn't. Yeah. Yes, it
Yeah,
is. No, it isn't.
Exactly. And but when you dig into them a little deeper, and we're just kind of giving a real quick gloss over, when you go to minimum wage pro-con.org, they do actually explain the points a little bit further. So another perfect example is point B on both lists. One says raising minimum wage will increase poverty.
Yep.
The other side says it will reduce poverty.
Right.
And in my personal opinion, I think they're both a little bit right and both a little bit wrong. The reason I would say that is if you raise minimum wage, one of the ways that they're going to save it is we're just not going to give you as many hours. So you're still making the same amount of money. You're just making it in less amount of days.
Right, but
over the-
raising the minimum wage, didn't do that. It was the greed and the snidiness of the corporations. And let's be fair.
Perfect.
But let's be fair. It's not the small businesses that are doing that. It's the big ones that are doing that.
Correct. And so when we use that case example of say Walmart, like I want to say 85% of the workforce, maybe even higher, is probably working at or maybe a little above minimum wage, but is only working at a maximum 30 hours a week.
And if you want to look at our Walmart just down the road here on Taylor, they've replaced almost all of the checkouts with robots now. You got to go do it yourself, scan it yourself. So they're actually getting rid of jobs as well. So they're getting rid of jobs anyway. So everything's being robotized.
So the question in automation, though, and that's one of the things that I actually had put on the arguments against as sort of that made me raise my eyebrows a little bit. Is that necessarily a bad thing that they're getting rid of that particular minimum wage job? Now, if they're just getting rid of the job, period, and not shifting them over to the rest of the workforce, that's a problem. Now, and that's exactly what they've done, because if you walk into a Walmart, you might as well be you, the security guard, the two people working at the customer service desk, and the rest of the people are literally all hiding in the back, right? Stocking or unloading or whatever they're doing. And there's nobody out on the sales floor. Nobody's can tell you where things are. If you've moved all these people off cash, put them somewhere else in the store, add value to your store, right? But does that necessarily do I really care whether I scan an item or they scan the item? I don't. I personally don't. Do I feel bad that could cost somebody their job? Yes, if they're going to actually lose their job.
And almost certainly they will be losing their job, particularly at Walmart. I mean, ideally, if we owned our own business and we automated it, we could take time off. Right, if we were the owners and we have a robot that can do, or some automated processes that can do half of our job, well, we can do a 20-hour week.
That's right.
Really, that's how automation could and should benefit all of us. But of course, we don't all own the means of production. We don't own the means by which the money is being made. Therefore, as soon as the businesses don't need us, goodbye. No.
Yeah,
that's it. Right. You're done. We don't need you. We'll give you the bare minimum that the law demands. Here's your 2 weeks. Who cares if you can't pay your next bills? They certainly don't. Yeah,
they are not. They don't care one way or another if I am able to make ends meet. They don't care if my wife works or if I have a kid at home. They don't. That's not ever factored into anything, because if you dehumanize somebody, you can do anything to them, right? And if you stop to consider whether or not I can afford to send my kid to a private school because she shows aptitude and they have great programs that will cater to her skills, then they don't really care about that. They don't even really care about the fact that I have a kid.
Yep.
They just care that I've come in and made them money.
Yep, that's it. Yeah.
So
okay, so I think we're kind of at the kind of at our kind of at the end here. Let's. I want to talk about one more though, just to kind of wrap it
sure,
up.
Go ahead.
And this will be as much as a teaser for upcoming episodes as anything else. The free market should determine minimum wages, not the federal government. Right, that kind of leads on further on from what we've been saying. Yeah, let's leave it up to the free market, and who are going to do the best thing.
That worked really well for Enron.
Yeah, or Boeing. Right, what did the free market do to Boeing? Well, we got 300 people dead, 600 people dead. Right.
Yeah.
You've got.
I mean, you could make the point at Enron saying, "Oh, well, at least the lights went out." They just deprived people of power, but nobody really died, or very few people were injured or hurt. But people died with Boeing.
Yeah.
That is like I don't mean to that sounds very insensitive with me kind of chuckling there, but I mean it's a chuckle out of disdain. I can't believe this. Where in the or how in the world did we get to the point where it's not even your workers, it's the people that are paying you to be on your planes. You're killing them. So, and I often, I've had lots of talks about, with people who say, oh, anti-vaxxing and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, they're just killing their consumers, or they don't care. They're putting extra sugar and fats and stuff, and they're just going to kill you because they don't really care. Yeah, well, you know what? If I'm not around, I can't spend money on them. So they have a vested interest not to kill me, but they also don't have a vested interest to really completely care about how well I take care of myself. So it's a two-bladed sword, but they're not out there intentionally to kill me.
Yeah,
right.
It's that they don't care. It's not that it's their malice. If there's any malice in there, it's just it doesn't even occur. And if it does occur, well, it gets in the way of the bigger, the more important motive of making money. That's right. Which is a phrase I hate, by the way. It's not making money. If you make money, then you are committing a crime. Yeah,
that could be fleshed out for another episode.
Yeah,
that would be a really good one, but that won't be in the immediate future here for us. Well, we're getting down to about that 5-minute mark. I actually extended.
Actually, I just wanted to kind of go on just a smidge about the free market, and the ludicrousness of that is that you've got put yourself in a position where doctors get paid a lot because there aren't many doctors. Therefore, they can ask for more money. They're higher skilled. But what if we had everybody was a doctor, and therefore we should pay them? Should we be paying them minimum wage, and the one person that's available to clean the toilets, should they get the $100,000 dollar a year job? Because that's what the free market would dictate in that situation. It's ridiculous that an individual would be determined on how many other people can do the job rather than, and I said this earlier, rather than the value that the work provides for the company and provides for the people in society as well. Right?
Exactly. And you think about, and if we want to bring it into that whole healthcare thing, you think about the doctors. Yes, doctors are important. Surgeons are important. They keep people alive. But as equally, how about the healthcare aide that cleans the room and disinfects all the equipment? If they don't do their job right, they could kill someone. How about the electricians and the mechanics, the HVAC mechanics and the plumbers that continue to keep the facility up and running? Are they any less important? No, they are just as important. How about the administrators? Everybody who touches healthcare is important. If you don't have a good administrator, you don't keep records well. If you don't keep records well, you could kill someone with the wrong prescription. right?
Yep.
So the point is, you can't really just arbitrarily come in and say this person deserves more because X. They're just one part of the whole. Does the doctor desire or deserve more? Possibly, but that's another topic
Yeah.
for another show.
Yeah, for sure.
So
And we're
at
not
any
sa-
rate,
and we're not saying
any
that he
final-
doesn't. Yeah.
any final thoughts before we bring her into land here, Mark?
No, I think we're good. I think we've covered the high level. We will have links to the main article that we were referring to just for the discussion points there. We didn't get our opinion from these at all, but so minimum wage procon.org. Anyway, we'll have that link on no, we won't. It'll be two
Not
guys
the Invisible Man.
fixing the world.
At fixingtheworld.ca. Speaking of
this is a
fixingtheworld.ca,
year of saying
you
no.
can come join us
Yeah.
anytime. All our shows will be posted there, as well as your favorite podcasting app. Like, share, subscribe, tell everybody you want. If you're a young person wanting to learn more about politics and all that, you're welcome to come join us. If you're a crusty old salt like Mark and myself, you're welcome to come here too. There's a place for everybody within our show. We're glad that we could be a part of your day, wherever and whatever you are doing. So check us out at those sites. If you enjoy hearing Mark and I talk, you can continue to support us by checking out our at least a couple times a month show, The Invisible Man, co-hosted by a good friend of ours, Colorado Phil. That is on the invisibleman.ca, and check us out on Facebook at the Invisible Man Band on Facebook.
Or it's all in the mind band.
It's all in the mind band. Yes, there we go.
Anyhow,
Lots more
links-
information for us there.
Links are on the
Thank
website.
you to everybody else for joining us
Thank you.
today. Thank you to Mark Stollard, my good friend
Thank
and
you, Ryan.
co-host. And
Indeed.
I'm Ryan Jans. Have a great day.
Thank you much, everybody, and we'll catch you later.
He's gonna find you